Lummi Island, a short story series of the Ostium Network. Written by Alex C. Telander. Read by Justy G. Part 1. Cold Tinted Windows. 12. We'd been walking for around 20 minutes when I noticed the things on the trail ahead. There was still enough light to see details, but it was definitely fading. Michael was watching Charlie dig for something off to the right when I caught his attention. "There's something ahead," I said. "On the trail." He looked at me, checked on Charlie, who now joined us, then looked ahead. He'd started walking automatically and then stopped like a wall had suddenly appeared before him. He studied what it was, wondering, but we were too far away to be able to make anything out. There was a weight in his voice when he spoke that I'd never heard before. All the humor and happiness seemed to have left him. "Come along, then. Let's find out what dread awaits us." It wasn't long before we knew what it was, or rather, what they were, but without a word uttered between us, we just kept walking. And then we were there, and there was no question. Less light now, but still enough to see, to have no doubt. Michael said nothing. "Welp," was my single-syllable response. The bodies hadn't been there long, because we would have come across them on our way out. There were no apparent lethal wounds to identify if they were dead or how they might have died. But I could just tell. It was an overwhelming feeling that I've sadly experienced before, telling me these people were no longer breathing the air of this world. I had been right the last time, and I knew I was right this time also. Michael then knelt down and touched his finger to the man's and the woman's necks, checking for life. His body language transmitted his assessment to me loud and clear. There were two things that pushed me over the edge into the realm of terror and panic. One was what the man was holding in his right hand. It was clearly a gun, a small pistol, but it was unlike any weapon I'd ever seen. The barrel was very short, with a strange filigree, strange lines and tubing. The handle was rounded and semi-transparent, appearing to be filled with a dark blue liquid. The gun, to me, looked like a weapon from another time, from the future, if I had to pick one. It just didn't look of this world. The other was what Michael finally said. "Well," he spoke, his voice cracking a little, "I suppose we now know what happened to Miss Jane Harcourt." End of part 1. Cold Tinted Windows was written and produced by Alex C. Telander. It was read by Justy G. All the music in Cold Tinted Windows is composed and performed by Lee Roosevelt under a Creative Commons license. The songs featured were: in Part 1, The Secret of Growing Up, Keep Trying. In Part 2, Under Suspicion. In Part 3, It's a Mystery. In Part 4, Expectations. In Part 5, Reflections. In Part 6, I Believe in You. In Part 7 and 8, How I Used to See the Stars. In Part 9, Featherlight. In Part 10, Small Steps. In Part 11, Looking Back. In Part 12, The Nightmare. You can find out more about this story, Lummi Island, and other stories set within the Ostium Network universe at ostiumpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.